Hey everyone, in this episode, I have a good friend of mine come on the show, Marshall. Marshall, we in fact went to high school together, and his wife reached out to me a few months back and asked if I could help. Marshall came here to Rock Recovery Center, went through our whole entire program, and is completing the program in just 3 days, and he's getting ready to transition home back to North Carolina. So I wanted you to hear his story, the things that he did while he's been in treatment, and what he's going to do whenever he transitions back home. We get into his work history of being a psychiatric nurse. We get into what it was like for him it's his first time in treatment. What's his plan whenever he does transition back home, the importance of marriage counseling and building a solid foundation again on his marriage, because he let a lot of that go in his alcoholism. There's so many good nuggets in this episode that I know you're going to love. Enjoy the show. Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, it is just me and Marshall. Marshall, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Tom. How are you, buddy?
Good, thank you. First things first, thank you for tuning in on the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use. And thank you for watching on YouTube. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. Right, Marshall?
Yeah, I like that.
You like that?
I like that a lot. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. One other thing, go to realrecoverytalk.com/guide. There you will get 5 steps that you can take to get your loved one the help that they need. It's a PDF download, quick. Just download it, print it, hang it up on your refrigerator, put it in your car, put it somewhere that you're going to see it. And it's a constant reminder, if you have somebody in your life that is struggling with addiction, on some steps that you can take to get them the help that they need. So again, you can find that at realrecoverytalk.com/guide. All right, Marshall, here we are. All that's out of the way. How's things?
Things are going very well, Tom.
Yeah?
Yeah, excellent. After spending a couple months here, I'm feeling well, I'm doing well, and it's kind of something that I've been parroting the entire time. Feeling well, doing well. We're looking at 3 more days left, and I'm excited, excited, a little nervous about some things, but I can't wait at the same time.
Nice. So let me give a little context to this, if you don't mind.
I don't. Go ahead.
So Marshall and I grew up same area, Newcastle, Pennsylvania, one of the shittiest places on earth, I think.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot going on there. They got good football. Newcastle football is, that's what they're known for, and basketball. I suppose.
Yeah.
So we grew up there, small town. I grew up in like North Beaver Township. Where did you live?
Wampum.
Yeah. So, anyways, we went to high school together. Marshall, you're 44?
44, yeah.
So, and I'm 40. I graduated 2002. You must have been
98. Yeah.
And then Marshall has a younger brother, Jesse, who was closer to my age. He would have graduated in 03.
Right. Yeah.
And so we all knew one another. And the reason I want to say this is because I think it's important to, this whole recovery thing, like it comes full circle at some point in time in your life. And it wasn't probably, I would say 4 or 5 months ago at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Marshall's wife had reached out to me.
Yeah.
Because obviously I post, stuff on social media, the podcast and everything. And a lot of people from our hometown know my situation, know my story, and kind of where things are for me today. And so she reached out with, questions obviously about you and some concerns and stuff like that. And we hadn't spoken in, honestly, every bit of 20 years. And even when we were never friends.
We weren't.
We were acquaintances. Like I knew of you.
Same,
and I knew even Jesse, like we knew each other, and we obviously, I think we probably partied at a lot of the same spots, but very small town. So even though you weren't like quote unquote like good friends with somebody, everybody knew everybody.
That's right. Yeah.
And so when she reached out, obviously I wanted to do everything in my power to make this happen. And here we are today, so I've known Marshall for my whole life in some capacity.
Yeah.
So, pretty cool how this all turned out. And so I want to dive into a little bit of your story. We're obviously going to have probably some parallels, and just give the listeners kind of an idea as to how this whole recovery process is going to start, or should be, I should say, because this is really your first time in treatment.
It is my first time in treatment. Yeah.
So take us back a little bit into your drinking. We obviously established we grew up in the same area. Talk a little bit about like maybe your upbringing and the substance abuse, if any, but really when your alcoholism kind of took hold.
Yeah. It was a small community. Tom and I had mutual friends. When I was in high school, I was relatively straight-laced, aside from being a little mischievous in some areas, and substance abuse never peeked its head in my high school years. Thank goodness it didn't, too. I think it would have been a little bit of a different picture today, if there was a picture at all. So thank goodness I was able to avoid that. I grew up in a Christian house, and there were a lot of things that I hold dear, and avoiding alcohol was one of those things that was just completely off the table for me, along with other substances. So I was 21 years old when I had my first drink, actually.
Oh wow!
And it was I could take it or leave it. It didn't really play a big part of my life at all in my in my early to mid 20s, and it continued that way for a long time. But I could see things around me with friends, and especially where I kind of started to take note was reflecting on familial history, extended family. It was never played a part in my direct family at home. But when we would talk about aunts, great aunts and great uncles, it was, I could kind of start to see that, okay, maybe there's a story here. And never, even at that point, I didn't put too much stock into it. I just didn't have the smarts to realize it. And, as things kind of progressed, into my 30s, it would still kind of continue that trend. And until my late 30s, maybe 37, 38 years old, I found myself, stopping by the liquor store. Beer was one thing I could kind of enjoy it and have it with dinner. But, when liquor started playing a picture, it was a whole new world for me, and one that, to be frank, I enjoyed. I started working from home more in 2020. So I found that, if I'm home alone and, doing my thing, working from home, and I have a liquor bottle on the cabinet, well, why let that go to waste? I can drink and work at the same time on my computer, and it was around that time I started to think to myself, this could be a problem. I can see how this could definitely be a problem if I don't take care and do things in moderation. But I didn't do anything in moderation. I'm an addict. It's all or nothing for me. And we made some. Abby and I were talking, and talking with our kids about, the idea of maybe moving from, the horrible Pennsylvania weather and moving south. So we did that. We did that last year. But to back up a little bit, we built our house. We built our house. We had a nice piece of property. And we were, for all intents and purposes, living the dream that we saw ourselves living for the rest of our life on this piece of property. But we realized that, the Pennsylvania weather specifically, and just being in that area was not the best thing for us and our kids. We had to drive, 10 to 15 minutes to get the kids to a place where they could do the things that they enjoy: skateboarding, playing basketball, being with their friends, and that's an inconvenience. So we started thinking about living in a neighborhood down south, and just to kind of make our lives better for everybody. So we sold our dream house. We sold our dream property, which was not an easy thing. So when things aren't easy, we addicts really like to go to our drug of choice. And that's probably when it started to get really ugly for me, with drinking liquor specifically. And for the past 2 years, that's what my story has been. Up until I came to Florida, I hadn't had a sober day in at least 2 years. So we packed up, we moved south. We moved about a half an hour north of Wilmington, North Carolina. Beautiful neighborhood. Our kids are just thriving. They're killing it. They have friends. They're, exceeding in sports, especially my son, skateboarding, playing soccer. He's living his dream. My daughter, making all kinds of friends and doing the things that she loves with her friends: art, music. She's our artist of the family. And it was lovely to see that. But, at the same time, I'm still drinking, and drinking a lot. Not because at this point, it wasn't because, I was trying to bury something, apparently, and I would come to learn that it was probably, a lot of things from childhood, where I was trying to battle through that. But also in the past year to 6 months to a year, it was a matter. I was drinking to stay alive. I know that doesn't make much sense, but if you're familiar with, intense alcoholism, two drugs withdrawals are going to kill you, have the potential to kill you, and that's benzos and alcohol. And it was to the point, waking up in the morning, feeling the shakes, shaky, throwing up. It got to the point where, I'm walking, stumbling, trying to make it to the bathroom, and man, I look in the mirror every morning, literally look in the mirror and say, dude, looks like you are dying. And, I could feel it. I'm a nurse, so, I'm also looking at a lot of the facts of my disease, and my liver enzymes are through the roof. My appetite wasn't eating, wasn't drinking anything. It was all about the liquor. So, I'm realizing, looking back on the whole familial aspect, and it's a disease of, that really tends to have a familial aspect of some sort, whether it's genetic or not, there is a familial aspect to it. So like you said, Abby reached out to you, and I didn't even mind, the thought of leaving my family for a couple months was, I didn't want that to be an option. I was doing, everything to try to avoid that, trying to cut back and making the next day, better than today. And that really was not working. And Abby, with her, she really does have insight into these kind of things. And her conversations with you were so positive, so comforting, and she, against her, what she wanted was really trying to find the best option for her husband. And I remember we were sitting on the couch together, and she's telling me about the program, really trying to talk me into considering it, and I didn't want to resist, and I kind of dropped my hands and said, "Okay, I'm going to do it," and I did not. I had to make the decision to not recant on that. I told her, "I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Call Tom, get me on the books. I'm ready to do it." And and here we are. Here we are. I'm so thankful that she reached out to you, because I hadn't realized that you had such a successful institution here. That's not, institution isn't the right word. Such a successful track record, such a successful staff. This place really is amazing. It's a game changer, and I'm thankful that she reached out to you.
No, I appreciate that,
Yeah,
man. So I want to unpack a couple of things. You're a nurse, and you went into nursing pretty much.
It was a few years after high school, 2004. Yeah.
And if I understand correctly, psychiatric nurse?
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Nursing is nursing, really, all across the board. But yeah, it was in mental health, psychiatric nursing. There's, I guess that would have been my specialty. Of course, we kind of follow a lot of what, the doctor lays out in a treatment plan. But from a nursing standpoint, you're like, let's take diabetes, for instance. A doctor will lay out a treatment plan, usually involving diet, insulin, and what it takes to read blood sugars and, with the glucometer and whatnot. In psychiatric nursing, it's medications, it's the behavioral therapy. But from a nursing standpoint, we're watching a lot of what, the side effects of the medication are, because it's not necessarily a science when it comes to medications. If you break your arm, more than likely you're going to have a cast. If you suffer from depression or anxiety, it's not, okay, take this SSRI, you're going to be all right. A lot of times this SSRI, it's great, it works, and treatment becomes a little easier. But, if this SSRI has an adverse effect, then we've got to jump to another one, and it's not just an overnight thing. You're looking at, 4 to 6 weeks for this medication to become effective. So, in nursing, we're kind of like the parents, the grandparents, the brothers, the sisters, the therapist, and the doctor all rolled into one, trying to keep eyes on the patient, make sure that their treatment modality is effective, but also following up psychosocially. How are you feeling today? Let's sit down and talk. And a lot of times that's what it is, just kind of talking, making sure that, the behavior is matching up with sleep, and, that you're able to live out your activities of daily living without any, real hiccups.
So the reason I wanted to bring that up, nursing is something that obviously is a great career path for people, but I've seen a lot of substance abuse inside nursing. Now, there's substance abuse in any industry. We can all agree there. Like, it's everywhere. But in your specific situation, would you say, like, especially being a psychiatric nurse and dealing with mental health and these sorts of things, I imagine I'm envisioning a lot of output to other people, yes. Constantly talking with other people, doing whatever you do as a psychiatric nurse involves helping others. Do you think, looking back on it now that you have some sober time put together, did you kind of forget about yourself and kind of put yourself on the back burner, not only maybe in your nursing career, and I don't know, maybe in your home life as well? Like, did you have that kind of sense of emptiness, and maybe alcohol was something that helped you cope with that?
Most definitely. Yeah, most definitely, especially in retrospect. Like you said, it can be an intense career path. And even over the past few years, a lot of that time was spent, doing really, complicated assessments and trying to meet people where they were, over the phone. And, and that was difficult for me. And a lot of people can do that with no problem at all. But yeah, it was making sure that, that everybody's walking the straight and narrow, and I wasn't really. And as far as my family, I don't, I cannot identify, a difficulty that Abby and I had in our marriage that was causing me to want to not feel it. We have a really good marriage. We have an excellent marriage. And I don't blame Abby for thinking that there was, maybe something that, that I wasn't happy with, with her personally. But those thoughts, they creep in. They do creep in. And, when, the husband is, who's otherwise a normal guy, is just kind of laying in bed and drunk most of the time. Of course, those thoughts are going to come in. What am I doing wrong and whatnot? But over the past year, it was bam, bam, bam. Things were moving really quickly, and there was definitely an aspect of, I hope I'm doing the right thing. I am moving, but any reservation that I have, or any complication that I think it's going to cause, can be solved just by drinking and forgetting about it.
Yeah.
Leaving my parents at home. Well, not home, but in Pennsylvania. They're aging also, and they're thriving, doing well, but they've had complications. They've had some health complications over the past couple of years. So there was an aspect of that where I not to sound heartless, but we really wanted to make this move, and I would I would try to solve those reservations with drinking, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's as far as the parents go, I left my dad in Newcastle, and but I left him by way of going to treatment, and fast forward almost 14 years later, it's the best thing I could have done, and my dad had a stroke 2 years ago, and so he lives with me now. So it's, again, going back to what I was talking about in the beginning, how these things kind of come full circle. But, geographical change, I think, is very important. And I want to dive into this a little bit.
Yes.
You tried getting sober a couple of times before coming to Florida.
Yeah.
What was that like? Like, walk us through like what you tried and those sorts of things.
That's a great question. I'm a nurse. I can do this. I know what I need to do. I need to taper off. I need to make this a slow transition. I need to watch for seizures. I can do this. That's no sweat. So I came up with this fail-proof plan. I'm like, okay, Abby. You know, Abby goes to work during the day. So I would say, okay, what you're going to do is you're going to give me this much gin, okay? This much, and that's going to last me until you get home. And so, so I would take my gin in the morning, and by noon, my gin's getting lower and lower and lower, and all of a sudden I'm thinking like, oh no, I drank. Not that I drank too much. I can never drink too much, but that's all I had for the next few hours. So here I am, like trying to. I'm anxious as all get out because I only have this much left. And I'm calling Abby, where's the bottle? I need to find that bottle. I need to get that bottle. I need more. And, and she would say, Marshall, we had a deal, it's just this much until I get home. And I can't tell you where the bottle is. So you can see where this is going. I was saying that I'm only going to have so much. And then I'm calling Abby asking for more. And it's like going to the gatekeeper, and if there is anything that's going to be really difficult on a marriage, it's that kind of relationship. And I thought it was going to work, because here I am, coming up with this plan and then holding a resentment to her when I can't get more. And that was not going to work. Totally not going to work. And we did this for a long time too, off and on. I would, it got to the point where I'm on my lunch break, I would just, I would go to the liquor store. I would lie. I would go to the liquor store and, get a handle or so and get a handle in a fifth, and I would start drinking the fifth on the way home, but I would go get home and, I'd had my handle. I'm good as gold. And I would take it and hide it somewhere. And then the next morning I would ask for a little bit of gin because that's going to get me through the day. So, Abby would she would go to the bottle that, that she had hidden and would, give me my allotment of gin that, was going to last me for the day, and that, that she was thinking was going to last me for the day. And, and here I am with my hiding places, and I had my own gin, and the lies, man, the lies. If our marriage was any less than what it was, I mean, she would have been gone a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I couldn't feel bad about that. I by no right would I have a leg to stand on when it comes to feeling bad, because I'm a liar, man, liar. And that's something that I've been gone for 2 months. That's something that we have to work through, when I get home. It's going to take Marshall doing a lot of listening, shutting his fat trap, hearing her out, hearing my kids out. We've been very open with them, this whole time. Can't hide it. You can't hide this. You really cannot. No matter how good you think you are, you can't hide this disease from anybody, including your kids. My kids are 14 and 15. They see it.
Have they ever said anything to you?
Yep, they sure have.
Like what?
They don't want to. They don't want to cross a boundary. I think that they don't want to cross this boundary between being, a child and really calling dad out on his BS, you know? So it would be this very respectful, Daddy, are you okay? Are you okay? Or how much did you have to drink today?
Like in a very innocent way.
A very innocent way, because, you know, in their eyes, they don't have, you know, they think that they can't question dad. But it would be this, it was very, very innocent. And I couldn't lie, you know. I couldn't lie, but at the same time, I am lying because I'm saying I'm okay. This is going to pass. I'm going to get through it. There's some, you know, plan that I kind of made up. But it got, it just got to the point where I'm helpless, absolutely helpless when it comes to this disease.
So let's transition now to the treatment process, because this is obviously your first time. Tell me what you had in your mind in terms of treatment in and of itself. When Abby comes to you and says, Marshall, okay, it's time for you to go to treatment. And you're like, I don't want to go, but I'll go. What did you envision it was going to be like?
This is really funny. And, you know, prior to coming to treatment, you know, I was actually taking an SSRI, you know, for anxiety, mostly anxiety, probably, you know, some underlying depression too. And I was taking Xanax too. It was prescribed to me. I never abused Xanax or pills. But the funniest thing was, when I came down to Florida, you know, in detox and, you know, and here at the Rock, I thought that I was going to be able to take Xanax.
Oh yeah.
You know, and it's so funny. And, you know, when I look back on that, in fact, you know, some of the guys and I were laughing about it the other day. You know, Marshall thought that he was going to get Xanax when he got down here. Anyway, yeah, so I didn't, you know, from day one, I didn't get my Xanax, but you know, I funny thing is I didn't need it. The transition for me, because it was, you know, it was one substance that, you know, that I was abusing, was, you know, which was alcohol. Thankfully, there is there's a really good effective plan, you know, with medication, mostly, you know, to kind of prevent those withdrawals, you know, the seizures, and most importantly, the seizures, you know, the delirium tremors and whatnot. And my first week in detox, man, it was a good week. And I think, you know, I think it was good for me because I saw the days go by that I wasn't drinking and I wasn't dying. Like the first 24 hours, I envisioned my first day in detox being horrendous because I could not go 24 hours at home. But thanks to the, you know, like the medications, the supplements, especially being around other addicts too, where, you know, we could kind of talk about things. I was really surprised at how well I felt, how relieved I felt. And that feeling has kind of followed me all through recovery in this past 2 months. Just the relief that knowing that I have like this, you know, second lease on life in all senses imaginable. It is a second lease on life. My liver enzymes are back to normal again. I'm feeling normal. I'm thinking normally. And I just like so overwhelmed with relief that my life is starting over again. You know, like I have my second birthday, you know. Mm-hmm. And I know that I can never touch alcohol. I know that I can't. And just to get the, you know, this sober time under my belt means so much to me that I don't want to give that away. I can't give it away because I'll die.
So knowing what you know now through the treatment process and everything, what are some things that you know moving forward that you need to implement when you do transition home? Because you are going back home on Thursday.
On Thursday, yeah.
This episode is either going to go out. It may go out this week, actually. So you're going to be making this transition home. What are your plans in terms of maintaining your sobriety?
I've got to work the program. And when I say work the program, it's not working a program. It is working the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I see that playing a big part in my life. Reading the big book, resting on those who have come before me to hold me accountable. And even so, I have this plan, that I think might work, but at the same time, I kind of want to see what you would have to say about that. Being in treatment before I was, and seeing the success stories coming out of recovery. What should that look like? What do you think that should look like for me going back home?
Yeah, circumstances a little bit different. When I went to treatment, I wasn't married, didn't have any kids. I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. I had no reason to go back to Pennsylvania. So I obviously stayed in Florida. That's not your situation, but at this point, my gosh, I've helped thousands at this point transition back home into marriages, into being parents, and back into the career, the workforce and stuff like that. So with that being said, and we've talked about this a little bit. I think one of the big, and you said this already, one of the biggest things that you can do is, let's put this in 2 different camps, but let's first focus on the family. Listen, you said it, keep your big fat mouth shut. Mm-hmm. And, I think that goes a long way because, when you do get back home, it's going to be a transition in the sense that you've been away 2 months. Mm-hmm. Abby's been holding the fort down at home. She's been mom. She's been, caretaker. She's been the grocery getter. She's been the, whatever, taking the kids to all the sports and yada, yada, yada.
She's killing it.
She's been crushing it at home, and you've been in Florida, going to the beach and doing all the things that encompasses treatment, which is great. And that's why I think, this is one of the reasons why I think that you're going to do just fine. And I say this so many times to all of our clients that come here. If you do what you're supposed to do while you're here, chances are you're going to do what you're supposed to do when you're out of here. And oftentimes, we see clients come in that they kind of just coast through treatment. They don't get engaged. They don't participate. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they do the opposite, and maybe they don't do their assignments. They don't get a sponsor. They don't get involved in 12-step. They don't build community. They don't network with other people. They don't talk. They're not open-minded. They're just kind of stuck in their ways. And you coast through treatment that way. You're gonna do that when you get out, and then chances are relapse is going to happen. But in your specific situation, and we have staff meeting every Monday at 1:00. Today we're going to have staffing at 1:00. All the therapists are in there. Our whole team's in there. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you a Monday where your therapist, Hannah, has had anything negative to say. Now, that's great. But sometimes, well, I don't want to go to that part yet.
Yeah.
You have done everything that's been expected of you and asked of you while you've been here. Obviously, you've been an extreme asset to the community. So I think you'll be able to make that transition when you get home. You know what you need to do. You need to build community, get involved in AA, listen to your wife, listen without expectation. Don't speak, really process what she's trying to say. Yeah. Marriage counseling. Yeah. I think that is something that you guys should 100% get involved in.
Agreed.
And it's more of a responsive rather than reactionary, like maintenance stuff, rather than getting to the point where now you need to do marriage counseling because you're on the verge of divorce. And trust me when I tell you, I've seen this play out because you're a different person. You're a different Marshall.
Yeah.
Okay. Abby isn't going to be used to the Marshall that's coming home. She's going to be used to the chaotic, lying, manipulating Marshall that she knew a few months ago. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a transition for her. So I've seen this play out to where, it can get ugly.
Yeah.
So we want to obviously prevent that. But I don't foresee that for you guys. I think you guys have a rock solid marriage just based off of the little information that I have. You've been married, what, 20 some years?
Yeah, 23 years.
23 years. So, I'm not so concerned about that. But here's what I want to say. I don't know if you've ever heard Ben Bueno refer to people getting straight A's in treatment. Mm-hmm. You've gotten pretty much straight A's, I think. Now, Hannah could tell me otherwise. I think that, again, you've done everything, all the expectations you've met and exceeded. I haven't seen you pissed off. I haven't seen you uncomfortable. I haven't seen you angry, those sorts of things. So sometimes in the treatment process, we're looking for that. Mm-hmm. Because it gives us ideas and insights as to, okay, well, what triggered them? What pissed them off? What was said? What situation angered them? And it gives us stuff that we can work on. Mm-hmm. We haven't gotten to see that side of you. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing or a bad thing or whatever. It's just, it is what it is. So I don't know what pisses you off. Only you know what pisses you off. And when you get back home, if that happens, which it will, now it's like, okay, what do I do? You know what I mean? Like, what tools do I have to prevent me from turning to the bottle? Because when all else fails, booze is there, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, maybe like I could give you a couple examples for myself. My kids, man, as a matter of fact, it just happened over the weekend. I took all my kids out to dinner or like a lunch over here on the beach. And it was just me and my 3 kids, and they're 8, 6, and 4. And me, I'm kind of OCD in a way. I don't like messes. I don't like spills and yada, yada, yada. And I especially don't like it when it happens at a restaurant.
Yeah.
And my daughter, my middle daughter, Hattie, she knocked her cup off the table and it just spilled everywhere. And I'm like, and I said at the table, I'm like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no. And my kids heard it and they all looked at me like, Dad. Cause I try my darndest not to swear in front of my kids. And I could tell it impacted them. And the reason I could tell it impacted them is because the first thing they said to my wife when I got home was, you should have heard what Dad said. So it wasn't the actual instance, but and that made me upset. But what made me more upset was now when my wife starts hounding me about what I said when Hattie knocked the cup off the table. Yeah. Now she starts telling me the impacts that can have on their vocabulary. Well, what if they start saying that? What if they do that? And now I take that as, okay, something that was innocent, and I apologized and I told them I shouldn't do it. Now you're telling me how I should parent. And that's where I go. Mm-hmm. And that's where I have to step back and say, you know what? Like, just let her talk. Shut up. You don't got to get defensive. Let her say her thing. And so that's what I ended up doing, you know, but it's something that I'm not that good at. Sometimes it would cause more of an argument, you know? So those sorts of things, like something so innocent, something so stupid, you know, again, depending on what type of person you are, can piss you off. Now, I got almost 14 years of sobriety, so it's like, I know, like, it never crossed my mind to pick up a drink, obviously. Mm-hmm. But, you know, like, and you're going home, you're going to have, you know, 3.5 months of sobriety. Mm-hmm. You're in early stages of sobriety, brother. Yeah. You know, so you're going to be vulnerable to these things. Yeah. And understanding and recognizing those is important. And so that will transition me to my next point, and then I'm going to shut up, is the community aspect of it. I would get plugged into AA as soon as you get home. Find out who it is that you can rely on at all times, no matter the situation. Obviously, you know, I don't know your sponsor situation, what you're going to do about that, but get you a sponsor, you know, work the steps again if you can, or, you know, willing to. Build a network of people, men, obviously, that you can rely on and talk to, and preferably find a couple of guys that have been sober, that are married, mm-hmm. with kids, mm-hmm. that, you know, like you can rely on and bounce stuff off of, because there's going to be times where you just don't want to talk to Abby. Yeah. There's going to be times where you don't want to talk to your kids. It's just being human. Yeah. But who can you talk to? You know, hey, let's go grab a burger and some wings and, you know, whatever. I have no agenda. Let's just, you know, Abby, I'm going to go. I'm going to, you know, go out with the guys, get something to eat, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. You know, those sorts of things. That make sense?
Yeah, it sure does. It really does. And the cool thing about it is another shout out to Abby, a few weeks ago, we moved from one house in the neighborhood to another house. I say we, but I really mean Abby moved moved us, along with the help from a couple of my brothers-in-law and sisters-in-law. And I'm finding out, like, I have neighbors who are in recovery right now. New neighbors who are in recovery. Another two neighbors who are sober. Just don't drink. So I, like, you know, she's already paving that way for me and making it, you know, making that easier, making those connections for me before I get home. She's the best thing in my life, man. Yeah. Best thing in my life. And I realize that every day. So yeah, I'm making that community, putting it on the forefront for sure, because that's what's meant so much to me here the past couple months. I was living in the house with all the guys, you know, having that camaraderie. The problem, and I think it's such a big problem, especially with men, that they have such a hard time. It's easy to go golfing, and it's easy to go to a concert together, whatever, go to a bar together. But the problem with men is that we don't sit down and talk heart to heart. That is so lost today. Why? I don't know. Is it a fear of being vulnerable? Is it insecurity? Yeah, it's probably all of that. But that's so lacking, just in, you know, amongst normies. It is not lacking in a place of recovery. It is not lacking here at the Rock and, in the sober houses. It's not lacking in AA. And it's so cool to see that. It's awesome to experience it, because I could go up after a meeting and talk to any one of the guys in the room, and it would be nothing just to sit down and have a half an hour conversation about heart to heart feelings, obstacles, the things we're facing. Because I think it's because we're, so happy that, we can pass that service on to others and offer others that hope. And that's the whole idea behind sponsorship. Take someone under your wing, and you're not getting paid for it. There is nothing outside of just knowing that you're helping somebody save their life. Mm-hmm. And it's such a big deal. Men need to do that more often.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting you bring that up, because I think that it's very true. Men, for whatever reason, have a hard time being vulnerable, opening up, sharing feelings, stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's strange.
Yeah.
I'm going to look at this camera and I'm going to talk to Abby for just 1 minute.
Yeah.
Abby, I'm going to stress this, and I can't stress this enough. Just the same as Marshall needs to build community for himself, you need to do the same. This is something that affects everybody. It affects the family as a whole. And you need to, if you haven't already, which I hope that you have, but if you haven't, that's okay. Get plugged in somewhere yourself. Meet other women that have gone through this situation, that have gotten to the other side. Have support for yourself, and be mindful of those sorts of things, because now I'm going to transition back to both of you. Mm-hmm. Resentment's a real thing in sobriety. Like it very much is, from both sides. Now, as you've probably heard up to this point, resentment is the number one offender. Resentment can cause somebody to go out at a snap of a finger, and it's because it's like, I'll show you, I'll just go get fucked up.
Yep.
And it's like, what can we do as a family? What can we do in particular as a couple, as, we're married, to prevent that? And you guys need your own space. Mm-hmm. You do. You need your own space. You need your own friends. You need your own community, stuff like that. And don't let that go by the wayside, because it's important. It really is. And, you're about to transition into a time of uncertainty, of potential conflict. Not potential. It's going to be there. It's in some capacity. I mean, you guys are married. It just happens.
That's right.
And it could be a scary thing, So, but again, I think you guys are going to do fine. I really do. Just because of the conversations that we've had, and, the conversations I've had with Abby before you even getting here. And I told her, I said, look, if Marshall does exactly the things that we recommend and takes all the suggestions and utilizes this program for everything that it has to offer, mm-hmm. you are going to look back on this situation as I'm so glad this happened. Yeah. And she was like, I really hope that's the case, because right now I'm like over mm-hmm. it, you know? And I'm like, trust me, this is something that is going to really amplify your guys' relationship. Yeah. Not only with you and her, but your children and stuff like that. So,
yeah. I would love to back up to marriage counseling first, if it's okay for a minute.
Yeah.
No matter how well a marriage is and how beautiful it looks on the inside, on the outside, no matter how close you are and how intimate you are with your significant other, marriage counseling can do nothing but benefit you. Like you said, it's not always fixing something, but it's, I don't know how to word it. It offers nothing but value and fruitfulness to your marriage. Abby and I we rarely have conversations that last, or arguments that last, more than a couple days. But yet we've found that going to marriage counseling just for the sake of going and you know, and talking about couples and whatnot, that it has done nothing but add just this beautiful value to our marriage. Of course, it helps if you have a terrible marriage and you know, things are on the rocks and it's ugly. Of course that helps. Men, go to marriage counseling with your wife. Go. It can do nothing but make your marriage better, no matter how good you think it is.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Me and my wife, we've been doing marriage counseling the better part of 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's not because like we have this god awful marriage. Mm-hmm. It's because why not do it?
Right.
You know? So,
right.
Well, I think we covered just about everything.
I think we did, man. We really did.
Awesome.
Everything from Pennsylvania to marriages.
Pennsylvania to marriages to psychiatric nursing.
Yeah.
God bless you for that, man. Oh, I did want to talk about this real quick. Mm-hmm. 2020 working at home, was that because of COVID, I assume?
It was, yeah.
So did your drinking really amplify, like I'm not going to blame COVID, but like that obviously played a part.
Yeah, it definitely played a part. It was, you know, whether I would be, you know, here, you know, to this magnitude today, you know, COVID notwithstanding, I don't know. I was definitely laying the tracks for some pretty serious alcoholism even just before COVID. But yeah, man, it was a mess. You know, it was, you know, especially being in healthcare. You know, and all of the, you know, the opinions one way or another, and hearing that all day, talking to people, and you know, and how divisive, you know, the opinions were and are, you know, trying to navigate that as a healthcare professional is very, very difficult. It really took a toll, you know, what to believe, what to trust, you know, and everything surrounding it, you know, outside of a disease that is ugly, you know, meaning COVID. Yeah, it was just nothing but a recipe for disaster for me, a recipe for disaster. And, you know, the numbers, also reflect that. You know, if COVID wasn't killing you, if COVID wasn't killing people, alcoholism was.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And yeah, and that played a big role in a lot of
relapses.
Yeah.
Meetings were shut down,
That's
everything.
Right.
I mean, it was crazy.
Yep.
Well, Marshall, for what it's worth, man, it's been an absolute pleasure being able to work with you these past couple of months, and you know, just being able to do this for you. And
the pleasure's mine, Tom.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I'm oozing that gratitude, man. Thank you.
Well, next time I'm up in North Carolina, we got to link up.
Yeah.
Where are you at exactly?
We'll do some fishing. About a half an hour north of Wilmington, Hampstead.
Okay.
Yeah. If you're a crow, you can get to the beach in about a mile.
Okay. But what if you're not a crow and you're in a car?
10 minutes, man.
Okay.
10 minutes. In fact, we could ride a bike over to the intercoastals and do some fishing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to make that trip. My kids need a good vacation. So maybe North Carolina it is. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and we're obviously going to stay connected.
Yes, sir. Yes, we are.
All right. That is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. That is it. We will see y'all later.